quick, a little business. Tim Couch had an epidural this weekend, so he's recovering.
Get well, Tim.
Recovery.
Shout out to
Leroy
Tim.
now joined us on a Monday. Leroy, I was doing some research. Monday research always a little different. We found this old picture on Wikipedia. Let's take tagboard full here. This is Leroy lifting back in his days in Michigan. Now, here's the crazy part. Leroy, I know it says 3 pounds. Had you have had Built Bars, let's take the next tagboard. Had you been eating Built Bars back in college, this could have been you, Leroy, squatting like Nick Chubb. If you're not already on Built Bars,
he got a little
go to
Kanye West in him right there.
promo code
Kanye in the face.
15% off. That is actually Nick Chubb squatting with Leroy's head. Great work by Anthony. But, Leroy, I bet you could have squatted that back in your day, especially if you were on a full diet of Built Bars.
Hey, I was old school. They used to ask me during the week, you doing legs? I said, I do legs on Sunday.
I ain't about to be doing those squats, bro.
Hey,
Leroy,
They ain't nothing like carrying a human being on your back for 5 yards. I say, ain't no squat bar gonna help you with that.
That's so true. That's a great. So where are you after last night? After yesterday, Leroy? Let it all out.
I'm hurt,
Get your money off,
because
dog.
here, let me explain something to you. First of all, the Jets are what? 4-3, 5-2.
No, they're 5-2.
5-2, and the season that the Browns have had is no different than the season they've had, except those 4 games that you're talking about where the Browns lost by 3 or less.
The Jets won them.
The Jets are winning.
Yep.
That's it. And that's football. And so what you have to do is, when you get in these moments in the game, you have to understand the importance of execution, of play calling, of situational planning, so that you can get over the hump of some of these games and not look so discombobulated at parts at the most important parts of the game. They did a hell of a job of containing Lamar Jackson. Nobody's done that. And you still lose a game? If I told you that these were Lamar Jackson's numbers, you would have said he either got hurt or they got blown out. Right? Look at those numbers. That's not even Lamar Jackson numbers. They probably in Baltimore right now saying, what's wrong with Lamar Jackson? And you can't win that game? Now, I watched this game, and keep in mind, it's hard for me to be a former Brown and be a fan because I get too frustrated, right? I get too frustrated because there's too many moments in the game where I watch the game and go, what are you doing? Let's close this thing out. And you putting, the game should not be in Jacoby Brissett's hands as much as it is when you have the talent that you have on the field. And I think that's the thing that frustrates me the most. You're asking, that's like me putting me in the backfield and saying run a 4-2. That ain't gonna happen. You know it ain't gonna happen. So what they do is they put me in situations where I can be me. But as football goes and these games are playing out at the end of games, you need to have, if you don't take advantage of the situations early on in the game's outcome falls in a guy who's not your best player. And so I don't know how to shake it. I don't know how to kind of to come up with a solution. I would say this. You guys are right about Ndamukong Suh. Go dust his big ass off and say, let's go. Right? Let's go.
Well, is the season salvageable though, or do you, you only make that?
It's the NFL. Like, just because the Jets are 5-2, don't mean they gonna continue. They gonna be 5-2 in the next 7 games.
They just lost their best player, so.
No, we'd have to go 5-2 though to be 7-7.
That's the thing about, if you look at this division, who's out of it? Nobody.
No, but yesterday it looked like Cincinnati sure flexed its muscle as the team that made it to the Super Bowl last year. They're trending up.
Okay, and guess what? Of every record that these teams have, ain't nobody a shoe-in for the playoffs.
No, not at all.
Nope.
So if you playing in a division like that, you're not out of it. So you need to do something to weather the storm. Here's what I'm afraid of. This team shouldn't be a team that is sitting back waiting for the return of Deshaun Watson. Because that's not who you are, and that's not how you've played. Deshaun Watson should be an addition. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying?
Do you feel that that's what they've done now?
So the fact that you're losing these games and how you losing them don't have nothing to do with who's at quarterback, which is what I said in the beginning of the year. The Browns are going to win and lose, and it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is, because how they win and lose games is going to be about getting after the passer
but Leroy,
and
hold
running
on.
the football.
Leroy, timeout. Jacoby's played all right. But you think if Deshaun Watson was playing these 6-7 games, they'd have the same record?
We'd be saying, look, they might not have the same record, but we would complain about the same things.
No, well, we might, but we wouldn't complain about it as much because he would make up for if Amari Cooper.
Hold on.
Yeah.
What is he going to make up for? Go through the course of those games. The course of those games,
all right,
the way those games were played out.
Jacoby Brissett throws a late game interception at the Jets. Jacoby Brissett throws a late game interception at Atlanta. Jacoby Brissett throws a late game interception at San Diego. Chargers, San Diego. Chargers. There's
If he makes those plays, they're 5-2. We're not complaining about anything.
Though. Here's the problem with that. The strength of your team, you took out of your own hands. They should never be in that situation where they're relying on Jacoby Brissett.
But every NFL game comes down to one possession at the end of the game, and you got to have a quarterback make a play. Almost every game.
Not if you lead in the league and damn near leading the league and running. See, don't listen. What the Browns are having problems with, let's not overcomplicate it. Okay? They don't run the ball enough. Wait, here's an interesting stat, as you put on the screen. The Browns are 0-5 when Nick Chubb doesn't get 20 carries. I don't care if he got to get the first 20 carries. I'm going to see if that theory holds water. Right? There's number one. Okay? Number two, you would increase your time of possession if you ran the ball more. So only getting the ball 25 minutes with a team that predominantly runs the football is crazy. You should never lose the time of possession, ever, with the way you run the football. The other thing is that until you find somebody to get pressure up the middle on defense, you're going to have the same problems. Look, I'm not an offensive guru. Here's what I would do to the Browns. Let those pass rushers rush and run the ball underneath. And guess how the Browns are getting beat? They're getting gashed, run the ball inside because those pass rushers are up the field. And then when you play action because you're trying to bring more guys down, then you get picked apart in the secondary. So you have to do something about getting pressure up. You don't necessarily need a player, but somebody need to say, you know what? We're not getting enough pressure on the middle. Let's do something to get more pressure. The other thing I would do is there are far too many unhappy players in the NFL that you can't trade Kareem Hunt for somebody. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big fan of Kareem Hunt. But if you're not using him and you have problems on your roster, that's how you fill him. That's how you fix him. So I mentioned this earlier in the year that I would do one or two things. Bring him some speed on the outside or bring or trade for a pass rusher inside. Got to be up the middle. And that'll help you there. But, I don't know how, and I can't explain how week after week the game starts, the Browns are handling teams up front, and then all of a sudden it just goes south? Is it because of adjustments? Is it because you give up on the run? Is it because you're trying to overthink a situation? Because football is such that, you just keep doing it until they stop it. That's kind of how it goes. And just because a guy is standing across from you don't mean he can stop you.
Hey, Leroy, let me ask you.
So I would like to see them, kind of simplify the game plan, stop trying to outsmart everybody, and be more consistent that way.
Hey, Leroy, so Cribs them mad on TV yesterday, right? They mad. Let me ask you a question. You heard about the yelling in the locker room after the game?
The Stefanski?
No, the Browns players.
Players?
Oh, yeah.
Players were yelling no effing leadership. One of the players yelled no effing leadership in the locker room. It was a thin air shot of the media.
I would say this, that losing is a frustrating thing, especially when you think you should be better. And I think that these guys getting in the locker room after a game and acknowledging the fact that we're better than this and going back and forth with one another, maybe that in itself starts holding guys accountable. Now, at some point, after you have a heated discussion like that, and after you yell, hell, I've been in locker rooms, guys almost came to blows, right? I'll tell you, I'm one of those guys. I'll tell you, give you a story. Me and John Randall used to go at it every day. There's no guy in football that I played against on a daily basis that I respect more for this reason. We all know these guys that play football on Wednesday and Thursday. I told you about it. John Randall was a football player every day. You had to deal with it. It got frustrating because you had to deal with that guy. He a Hall of Famer. I'm not. So just imagine me having to block him every day. And we played a game, and he came into the locker room on Monday and said the reason why we was losing because everybody is too much levity in the locker room during the week. And so I replied, no, the reason why we lost is because defense couldn't stop nobody.
No.
If you're gonna look, call it what it is. And so we got together in the middle. Thank God there was no blows because, it's something about standing up for yourself, but then realizing I'm about to get my ass kicked. I ain't gonna lie, right? But I ain't backing down. And that's the reality of it. So it's up to the players in that locker room to kind of get out of the funk. Okay? We all put this on all the coaches and all this, but guess what? When you get on that field, you got to beat the guy across from you. Mm-hmm. And I would say if there's one glaring thing that is different from last year to this year, it's the pressure on the quarterback. And the reason why is because you're not pushing the pile up the middle. And basically they're going to keep the two guards in the center and block 2 with 3, and let those guys go crazy around the outside. That you got to change it up. Run a couple of games. Line Myles Garrett up over center. Make them have to make some adjustments to your scheme without necessarily changing the players.
Yeah, we saw Emerson get home.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a blitz yesterday, and Emerson got home with the sack.
We keep saying that, though, and they're not changing much. I mean, again, I thought the defense did an okay job yesterday, considering.
Is that? But here, doing an okay job and always ending up on the losing side of these 3-point games.
Not good enough.
Means you got to do something a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
That means everybody. That means coaches. We got to try to do something a little different. That means players. We got to do a little bit more during the course of the game. Everybody has to acknowledge that and identify that and go out and do it. So the screaming of it, to hear the screaming in the locker room tells me that damn, even the players are getting tired of this nonsense too. And
That's a good
the only
thing.
players, as we all know, the only people that can really fix what's happening are the players on the field.
You know, Leroy, I'm gonna ask you this: do you see? Because I don't see it. I go back and I've looked at Patton, I've looked at Shermer, I've looked at Jazinski, I took a look at Hugh Jackson, went all the way back to Freddie Kitchens, and when you rewind the tape and when you listen to them in the press conference, all of those coaches are saying the same things. You see Pat Shermer say, hey, we're 1 or 2 plays away. Eric Mangini says, hey, right now our guys are working hard, but there's a few plays in the game where we're not making. How is it that you can go 20, almost 30 years in a row, and nobody is able to make the plays, the winning plays, that all these other teams do, right? It burns me, and it burns me like a lot of coaches and a lot of people in the media, and the fans is looking at it like this. I saw the Jacksonville Jaguars go to the AFC Championship. I've seen the Carolina Panthers go to the Super Bowl. These are expansion teams. I've seen the Texans Johnny come lately be good and go to the playoffs. I've seen the Cincinnati Bengals who get laughed at around the league who've been to 3 Super Bowls and they get laughed at. Why is it that here we can't do the basics and get to a point where we get lucky one year or we just, if the ball falls the right way? What is it? Can you explain that to me?
There's a lot that goes into that. I think part of it is Cleveland in the past few years have had some of the worst breaks. I mean, you think of, I don't even remember who it was that fumbled against Kansas City trying to go into the end zone.
Hollywood Higgins.
Right? You think of that. How does that change your thinking? One play. I don't blame him.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't know, you're trying to score.
Yeah, but they also got lucky in that game that Patrick Mahomes got hurt, so.
Even more reason. Look, nobody cares. Nobody cares who got hurt, when, where, or how. All they care about is if he makes that touchdown and the Browns win. We're thinking totally different about where we are. And it's unfortunate, but that's sports. That's sports. And you ask a very valid, why does it seem like, well, first of all, you guys should all be familiar with coach speak. And you can just play those same tapes throughout the league and get the same answers, right? That's nothing new. But the fact of the matter is you have way too much talent on this team to be losing games the way they lose them. 1 week it might be 1 million penalties. 1 week turnovers. 1 week you decide that you're going to take your greatest asset and not use them and try to trick the other team. One game is something else. And you never know when these moments are going to present themselves, but they always seem to do it. And you have to try to find a way. And I guess this is what all coaches and all fans are trying to look for, is that you want a more consistent team. You don't want to go into a game thinking, what is going to go wrong this week? You want to go into a game knowing you have a chance to win. And I think when the season started, we all felt that way because we all thought with the defense and ability to run the ball, there's not going to be as much pressure on Jacoby Brissett to be successful. And then throughout all this, he's going to be able to make some plays because they're not going to be demanded of him to win football games. But for some reason, you got a lot of guys banged up. You got guys who you thought were going to perform aren't. And you're putting way too much of the game in Jacoby Brissett's hands. And I don't know how you avoid that. I don't know why that has become an issue. But I got to tell you, I'd much rather be up 3 with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb than being down 3 and having to rely on Jacoby Brissett. Nothing against Jacoby Brissett, but that's not what your backup quarterback is in the game for. You don't want to have to rely on your backup quarterback to take you to victory. It may happen every now and then, but it seems like every damn week. We get to the last 4 minutes of the game, and you're like, okay, Jacoby Brissett going to make a play. Why? It shouldn't be that way.
Nick Chubb had 16 carries. Jacoby Brissett threw it 27 times. Obviously, you don't expect your running back to have as many carries as your quarterback has throws, but it seems like that number, there's been too big of a disparity between those. And, you were a running back.
Right.
It appears that he is on a touch count. You saw the numbers. They're 0-5 when he doesn't reach 20 carries. They're 2-0 when he does.
Is that necessarily a chicken and the egg? I mean, I don't know.
Because it works. It wouldn't be.
Last year they were 3-2 when he carried it 20 times.
Okay, I'll take that over 0-5.
Yeah. Wait. Bull, let's think of it this way.
Yeah.
Right? In sports, we all look at numbers, right? And some numbers we look at, and they don't mean a damn thing, but we use them anyway. Like, this team hasn't beat this team in 5 years.
Right.
On a Thursday night in November. Like, we use all these crazy rules to kind of get an idea of how a game's going to go. Right? Now, it's not a fact that if he gets 20 carries, the Browns are going to win. But you can't tell me I'm wrong.
Well, the likelihood if it goes up, but where I was going with that, Leroy, is you tell us, you know what these carries do to your body in the micro and in the macro. Is there a big difference? And if the answer is yes, that's fine, we accept it. But is there a big difference between getting 16 carries a game or, say, 23 carries a game? How does that all take the cumulative effect, or does it? I don't know.
If you're worried about the cumulative effect of your running back having too many carries, don't build your team around a running back.
Oh, thank you.
Okay? But since we're here, then let's use our horses.
Thank you. Yeah,
now,
you built the team to be that way.
Right. I will say this. I don't know how a team who predominantly runs the ball can't dominate the time of possession. And if there was one thing that I would fix, is that I would run the ball enough so that I controlled the game clock.
They're third in the league in time of possession.
Yeah.
They're third in the league.
That has to be one of the things that you use. And it's here. Right now, at this point of the season, you're resetting and you're thinking this. What do we do well? What are we good at? How do we go about it? And how do we get better at it? Okay? You know you're one of the top teams running the football. We know every team's going to try to stop us from running the football and put the ball in Jacoby Brissett's hands. Let's be more creative. Let's find different ways of doing it. But let's still do it to the point where we are controlling the game clock. They're not determining how the game clock's going to be handled. And you have to do that. You have to put yourself in a situation where your offensive line is wearing them down. And I think personally, I don't care how many times Nick Chubb carries the ball, and that's why you have Kareem Hunt, which you're not using him either. But if you get to that fourth quarter and you have a small lead, you're going to have to look at Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and say, let's go get this.
It's their time, right? Fourth quarter.
Right.
And it's interesting,
and when
Leroy,
you think about running teams throughout all the time we've watched football, and you get to that fourth quarter, and you get to 5-6 minutes left to go in the game, everybody look over the sideline and say, uh-oh, you know what time it is. But for some reason, the Browns don't do that.
Well, they don't have the lead.
No, but yesterday they used Nick Chubb. They established the run. That first drive looked beautiful.
Yep.
Then they decide that they're going to sneak one deep because the safeties are creeping up for run support. They hit a big one to Amari Cooper, which is great, but the run set that up. Then they thought, oh, hell, we can pass.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then they forgot all about the run.
See, and that's what I'm talking about, Jay. You have to always be consistent with who you are.
Know who you are.
And it not only helps your success, but it helps everybody on the team.
Right.
Because they can identify who they are. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and because
everybody
you complete
on
one
that
deep
offense
pass,
should know who we are.
Right. Run team. Stick with it.
Right.
Leroy, we gotta let you go. Great points. I loved your point about if you're not prepared to run the ball, then why the hell did you build your team to be a running team?
Exactly.
That's a very valid point. It makes perfect sense. Leroy, we'll see. Are you coming on later this week, or did you just swap your days?
Just swap days.
Okay. All right. We'll see you next week.
Leroy.
Have a great weekend, my
All
friend.
right.